Good morning, and thank you for joining us here at I-24 News Morning Edition. Well, the Knesset is going to vote today for Israel's 10th president in a race that was filled with scandal and drama. Finally, it's coming down to a close today. Although none of the candidates are deemed to be getting an outright majority in the first round, we do believe that it's going to go to a second round. But nevertheless, today is the day, and we're joined now in studio by I-24 News senior editor Ruti Sinai. Good morning, Ruti.
Good morning, Yael.
And by the Jerusalem Post parliamentary correspondent Lahav Halkov. Good morning, Lahav.
Good morning.
So, Ruti, scandal drama, as I said yesterday and up until now, it can get even worse. It can go,
Yeah,
thriller.
it can go. Yeah, really, it can go to a second round. I mean, this has been truly the most contentious and dramatic, I'd say, run for the presidency, in direct opposition, by the way, to the fact that it's a purely ceremonial position. The president really doesn't have much power in Israel. We've got 5 candidates. There's a front runner who is the former Knesset Speaker Reuven Rivlin. He will probably not get the necessary 61 votes he needs to preclude a second round, which means there's going to be they're going to face off. This all happens back to back in the next few hours in Israel's Knesset. We need to explain that the president is not elected by the people. He's elected by 120 members of the Knesset in a secret ballot, as you said, and pretty much all bets are off regarding who the winner is going to be.
All bets are off, and that's because of the surprises that we got throughout the race up until now. The biggest surprise, I guess, the latest surprise was, of course, the Benjamin Ben Eliezer, the Labour member of Knesset, who surprisingly went out of the race on Saturday. Any other surprises that can happen from now until voting time?
Anything's possible, but the race is going to start in about 3 hours, so I don't think there's going to be anything new. But this has definitely been plagued by scandal. Potential candidate Sylvan Shalom was accused of sexual harassment and then investigated for it, and it was dropped for lack of evidence. And then Ben Eliezer, there were several allegations against him, the most recent being a criminal one of illegally receiving funds from...
Which then started this domino effect of everyone having to become transparent, which of course is something that we should have asked for perhaps a long time ago, we as the media.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a phenomenon, and it's unfortunate that it came it came for such a bad reason, really. But all of the candidates now just came out and started listing, I have an apartment in Tel Aviv, I have an apartment in Jerusalem, which, again, it's positive that we're transparent now and that we have an idea of what all the candidates own. But now some people are looking at these candidates and saying, well, they don't reflect the real Israel. They don't reflect most people here. Is that who we want for president?
Well, this race also reflects, as Ruti was saying, it's politicians that are voting for this ceremonial post, of course, and it kind of really shows the nitty-gritty, or the bad side of politics. Because now, without Ben Eliezer, the left, per se, doesn't really have a candidate.
I wouldn't say the left doesn't have a candidate. The left and Dalia Itzik don't get along very well, but that doesn't make her a right-wing politician. It's more because of political infighting than her actual political views. And Dorner has a lot of support on the left, too. I mean, we don't know a lot of her political views because she was a judge and she was not supposed to be political, but she certainly has support on the left.
But politics also get inside, Shas, for instance. Will they be voting for a woman? And other elements, of course, like that, which, you hold yourself and you say, this is how we're voting, by gender, by ideology?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that Shas really is considering voting for Dalia Itzik, because up until now they've found reasons to say that we can't vote for a woman. But when it's convenient for them, apparently they can. But one point I just want to make is that we keep saying that's a ceremonial position, and it mostly is. But the point where it's not so ceremonial is after an election. The president chooses who gets to form the next government, and he's supposed to choose it according to who has the most recommendations, which means that in some cases, a party that's not the biggest party in the Knesset can get the highest amount of other party leaders to recommend him. And there's a lot of concern, certainly in the prime minister's office, that could happen to Netanyahu, that the Likud could be the biggest party and the president could choose somebody else, which is also why he was
one of the reasons why he
concerned
didn't
about the
want why he didn't want to endorse Rivlin, which he did, of course. Well, these are big shoes to fill, of course. Shimon Peres is on his way out after 7 years and a legacy of
70 years, I would say.
Exactly, 7 years only in the president's residence.
Yeah.
But the Israeli public looked at Shimon Peres not only as their president, but really a symbol internationally. He was, our diplomat.
Sure, I think there's great pride in him, and in the fact that he hobnobs with presidents and popes, and it was very clear when the Pope was here 2 weeks ago. Was it? Yes, 2 weeks ago. That the Pope was really reaching out to Peres. Netanyahu, the prime minister, was the real, is the executive branch, was virtually, never mentioned, and the Pope, really seemed to hug him, and Peres, was head of the International Socialist Union, a Nobel Prize laureate, speaks languages as an intellectual, can speak with the French, Academy.
Right.
He's a point of pride, certainly, and it's I think it remains to be seen. Although I think we can pretty safely guess that whoever steps into his shoes will focus more on a domestic agenda, social issues, the poor, social rights, and so on, rather than on the political scene. One other thing we should mention is that Peres could afford and did so. I mean, it was a bit of a fig leaf, or quite a bit of a fig leaf, for Netanyahu. Going abroad and saying, Netanyahu really does want peace, and Israel really does want peace. I think whoever succeeds him is not going to have that, that kind of standing.
Right,
And,
because we
credibility.
We do know some of the
Sorry. On the other hand, I think the presidency did a lot for Peres' standing in Israel before he became president, or until shortly before he became president. He was a very contentious political figure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, staying with the political issue in the presidency, of course, we do know some of the ideologies of the candidates. Some of them were politicians and were very outspoken about their ideas. Ruby Rivlin, of course, the Likud member of Knesset, doesn't really believe in two states. Something that the presidency and up until now has been pushing forward, even despite Netanyahu's kind of concern that he's doing a little bit too much or stepping out of his own game. Will Rivlin now have to keep quiet about his one-state solution ideology?
Rivlin says that he'll keep quiet. Knowing him, he's not that great at keeping quiet, but he is very good at being fair. As a Knesset speaker, he really did have a reputation for being fair to people on all sides of the political spectrum, despite his personal views. And I think as president, he'll be able to do the same thing. He can express his views, but keep it muted enough that it's appropriate for the job, like he did as Knesset Speaker.
We should mention I do agree, and I think we should also mention the fact that one of the reasons he's very popular, I mean, in public opinion polls, even though it's not the public that elects him, he keeps coming in ahead of all the other candidates, and one of the reasons is that he's perceived as being very honest and straightforward, and an upholder of minority rights, which is not, a foregone kind of conclusion in Israel. So I think, on a personal level, certainly he is the most respected of the group, I'd say.
Let's try to take it down. I know we're 3 hours away. Nobody wants to be caught on television giving guesstimates. But in terms of our viewers abroad also who are not maybe up to date with all the latest scandal, the top candidate right now looking forward, if we look at all the analysts and the polls, is Rivlin.
Yes.
And it's basically because the Netanyahu did decide to endorse him after...
Very half-heartedly.
and with a heavy heart, half-heartedly, heavy heart, and it goes on. He was a nemesis of Netanyahu.
I think a nemesis might be
too harsh.
Exaggerating because Rivlin wasn't running for prime minister.
Right.
But they didn't get along. But I think it might be overstating it to say that Netanyahu's endorsement is what pushed Rivlin over the edge, because his endorsement came so late in the game that I think most people who are supporting Rivlin had already decided to.
But now we're hearing also people from the left perhaps supporting Rivlin, the former opposition leader, Shali Yachimovich.
Yeah, she's
doing this
him.
based on her social issues and
Exactly.
of course, personal connection
Exactly.
to
As I mentioned before, I think the fact that he has always promoted minority rights and many Labour voters, or I don't know if many, but Labour has a fair constituency among the Arab population in Israel. I think that's one of the reasons. And also, actually, again, his integrity, his public integrity. Even though, she knows, and I'm assuming disagrees with his political views on the two-state solution. It's hard to know with her, but yes. But I still think, it was an unlikely source of support, I guess.
The word that people on the left keep repeating when it comes to supporting Rivlin is democracy. They believe he's a real defender of democracy.
Well, we'll see if he eats. It's pretty hard to keep quiet, even though you're in a ceremonial post. The next two that are coming up in the polls are either Dalia Itzik or Dalia Dorner, two very, very different, one's a politician, one's a former justice.
Both women.
But they're both women, and this is perhaps can be the next big headline.
Yes.
Lahav?
Yeah.
Women president feasible?
It's definitely feasible. And I mean, we did briefly have a woman president. Dalia Itzik was she was acting president for a short amount of time, and she hopes she hopes to come back to that post. I think that there really is a chance, because if we go into a second round, it means that the majority of the Knesset didn't vote for Rivlin, and if all those people vote for someone else, then Rivlin won't win. And so it depends. I think it all boils down to which one of them is going to be Rivlin's competitor and whether they'll get more votes in the Knesset.
Do we know who's leaning towards Dorner and who's towards Itzik within the Knesset? Who are Itzik? Because Dalia Itzik, and I want to hear historically as well, but she has a lot of fights to mend before she reaches the presidency, within the Knesset and within the Israeli public.
Yes, I mean, she's a politician for over 20 years, and that politics is full of arguments and fights, and there are people on the left who share her political opinions but can't stomach voting for her. All of Meretz, except for one member, is voting for Dorner and not Itzik. And that one person who's left is voting for Rivlin. And Labor, also very few members of Labor plan on voting for Itzik. And her support, surprisingly, is coming both from Haredi parties, from the ultra-Orthodox, and from Yisrael Beitenu, which are significantly to the right of her. But the leader of Yisrael Beitenu, Foreign Minister Lieberman, doesn't get along with Rivlin. So
it's all a matter.
It's all
of
personal.
friendship.
It really is interesting how personal this voting is, and also the fact that it really doesn't stack up along party lines. Some of them. I mean, the two outsiders, Professor Schechtman, whom we haven't discussed, but he's a Nobel Prize laureate, and Justice Dorner. They're both total outsiders, which is very unusual too. I mean, we haven't had an outsider as president since the 70s, Professor Katzir.
Right.
And so it is very, very personal, which perhaps in politics is only normal, but nonetheless, it kind of really mixes up the pot.
But Schechtman we haven't spoken about because, and correct me if I'm wrong, most have given him the least probability that he'll be on the next second round. But Dalia Dorner did kind of jump up because of Ben Eliezer's exit from the race.
Right.
And what makes her perhaps different from Schechtman, who, as you said, they're both outsiders, both have CVs that are glowing.
Yes.
What makes Dalia Dorner a more potential candidate?
I don't really know. She's a bit of an unknown. I mean, she's been, even less outspoken than Schechtman has. I think this, as Lav mentioned before, the fact that she was a Supreme Court justice and a judge before that, and then in the military before that, it kind of makes her closed-lipped or in terms of public speaking. And I don't really know, other than this patina of, honesty and integrity. I don't really know what she brings to the race. She's I think the oldest of the candidates. She's 80, and not much known about her, other than the fact that she was, still is head of the press council currently, and promotes the rights of Holocaust survivors. And
virtually, though, not as known as other candidates in the Israeli public, which perhaps doesn't matter.
She's the least well known, and I suspect she's the least well known in the Knesset too.
Right.
I think any votes that would go to her are kind of, most votes that would go to her are either protest votes or kind of default votes, not necessarily because of who she is.
Right. And Lav, because politics is the name of the game here, give us a little background of what it is to be a candidate in the Knesset. Schechtman, for instance, we were talking outside before, he didn't woo all the members of Knesset perhaps like others. There's a lot of groundwork and a lot of behind-the-scenes work that needs to be going on.
It's very true. All the candidates who weren't already Knesset members were given offices in the Knesset after they officially became candidates so that they can meet with the Knesset members easily and, just be there. Yesterday I saw Shechman in the cafeteria of the Knesset speaking to people. But it's not so simple because if you're a political outsider, you don't necessarily know the interests that are involved. Shachman, for example, when he said he was going to enter the race, people really thought he was going to be a great, strong candidate. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, politicians mostly want a politician. A lot of them want to clear up a new space, for new people to get jobs in the Knesset. And Shechman in particular, he's repeated several times that he gives 100 lectures a year abroad, which means that he's abroad every single week.
Right.
And he just wasn't around to sit with the Knesset members and meet with them and campaign and explain to them why he would be a good president.
Or perhaps he didn't understand that that's what he needs to be doing if he wants to be elected.
Could be.
One goes to the other. Lahav, you want to estimate or you want to refrain?
I don't think it would be wise to. Yeah, I don't think it would be wise to give a final guess at this point. I will say that it's fairly certain that Rivlin will make the second round, but the end result all depends on who else makes it there with him.
Well, do you want to be brave?
I totally agree. No, not at all. Don't want any more egg on my face than I already have.
We will be updating throughout today's morning show and, of course, throughout the day here about the results. After the break, the Tel Aviv deputy mayor will be here to tell us all about the Gay Pride Week and, of course, the parade at the end of this week. But first, some more of this morning's headlines. Welcome back to I-24 News Morning Edition. We now get to say hello and good morning to our one and only Anthony Grant, who's here daily to discuss the news you may have missed.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Beautiful morning here.
Beautiful morning, and I want to say also good morning to the Deputy Mayor of Tel Aviv, Asaf Zamil. Thank you for joining us. Asaf, if you have any insight into the headlines, and we'd love to hear the Tel Aviv perspective, of course. What are you starting with,
This one
Anthony?
is an all-Israel perspective from the Jerusalem Post. Story here about Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman in the U.S., Robert Menendez, who has basically warned of severe consequences for the Hamas-Fatah unity government. And this is the kind of the expected backlash that we're seeing from the U.S. Congress in the wake of this political development in this part of the world, as of course, the State Department is kind of taking a more wait-and-see approach.
Well, we were waiting for this to happen.
We were waiting, and this is...
We always said Congress is not going to let the Palestinian Unity government pass through without any fight.
Yeah, and
battle.
what they're talking about is possibility of withholding funding, and we're talking $500 million of aid a year going to the Palestinian government, but it's already gone through for this year, but maybe there could be consequences following that in the next fiscal batch, so to speak.
All right, so far he's leading this battle by himself.
Leading the charge.
But,
I'm sure he'll find some friends in Congress who support his views.
Indeed.
Back in the Middle East, Al-Aram reports on an interesting development with the new president of Egypt, Al-Sisi, of course, and the situation with Ethiopia. And there's some friction between the two countries over a dam project, which Egyptians are concerned that it might cut off some supplies of Nile River water, which of course is the lifeblood of Egypt.
Right.
And Sisi is saying he's not going to allow...
the only resource
basically,
in the area.
Yeah. He's not going to allow that rift to develop, according to what he says. So let's see how he backs it up. But
I think he has a long list of other challenges to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's in the basket though, because water, desert, you need a lot of it. So that's one to watch. And back into American politics, The Guardian reports that the Taliban swapped for Bergdahl could be drone targets, Secretary of State Kerry indicates. Interesting language that Kerry used. He said that he's not saying that these guys, the prisoners that were released, don't have the ability to go back and get involved in the Afghan conflict, but he also said, and I'm quoting here, they also have an ability to get killed doing that, end quote. An ability to get killed doing that. It's kind of unusual verb there to basically say if they go back into the battlefield, such as it is, they could probably be easily tracked and susceptible to American response. Not spelling out specifically what that could be, but again, a lot of controversy over the fact that these prisoners were actually released. So he's kind of saying, look, well, maybe they were released, but we're kind of monitoring what they're going to do.
Interesting,
So-
because of course here in Israel we keep on comparing this deal to the Gilad Shalit deal, which saw 1,000 prisoners being released, many of them with blood on their hands, and this, of course,
it's similar but different.
It's very different, very different, and it's kind of a different mentality, of course, as well,
Yeah.
to convince not only Congress, as we've seen, it's hard to convince, but the American public, of course, as well, that perhaps this is the way to go.
Yeah, and still playing itself out. And again, it's very much a domestic. In Israel, it's more of like a national kind of awareness, and in the U.S. it becomes very politicized very
Right.
fast. The New York Times says that a Moscow court has sentenced 5 people to prison for the contract killing of journalist Anna Politkovskaya in 2006.
It's been a while. I've been following the story. I remember.
As have I.
Yeah.
And when this shooting happened, it was quite shocking, and it sort of had a chilling effect, I think, on a lot of journalism in Russia. And so the wheels of justice turn slowly in Russia, but they have turned. And of course, she was reporting quite aggressively on Chechnyan matters and that sort of thing, and put her on the wrong side of the fence politically with certain elements who may have been the ones we led to think that are involved in this conviction.
Well, I'm happy that they have found suspects and that they've sentenced 5 of them.
Yeah. So
But
that's.
as you said, there's a long list of Putin.
There's a long list,
for
but
Putin
we can add that to the mix. The Wall Street Journal, on a happier note, has a story about Greek startups that are apparently facing successes, even though there's a lot of hurdles. We think about Israel and the startup culture. Actually, there's a bit of a startup culture brewing in Greece as well, despite the economic crisis. And interesting to see the Wall Street Journal report on that. And one of the problems that people face there is actually extricating themselves from public service sector jobs that they have. They talk about this pair of business people, young guys here, who had a really hard time getting allowed to leave their low-paying public sector job to go work in the private sector.
Well, you need a strong economy to decide to build in high-tech sector.
And only 50, yeah.
Now I was going to let Asaf jump in here because, of course, Tel Aviv is not only
a big
the
incubator
hub
of startups.
It is a big incubator of startups. You need a vital economy and perhaps a strong legislation as well.
You do, but I wouldn't want to compare ourselves to Greece to begin with.
Exactly.
Which is why I didn't intervene.
But on a creative level, I mean, let's just face it. I mean, the Greeks came up with democracy long before Israel. So I think we have to call a spade a spade.
You're getting ancient on me. Okay.
But only 58% of Greeks are online. So I think Israel far surpasses Greece in that regard. The Express has a cool story about Margaret Thatcher back in the news because there's a square that's been named after her in Madrid.
I'm sure Benjamin Netanyahu will fly in a plane just to see that square,
well, you know
just like how he flew to her funeral.
There's a square named after Yitzhak Rabin in Madrid. Did you know that?
Yeah. I didn't know that, but there's a lot of Rabin streets and squares around the world.
Okay.
And that does make me happy. Margaret Thatcher, wow.
Margaret Thatcher, yeah, it's actually called the Plaza de Margaret Thatcher.
I wonder what the Spanish think about that.
They're happy. No, I don't. Actually, it was a little bit of a political football according to the papers there, but there
it's
it
not
is.
Exactly, the consensus, especially in Europe.
Yeah.
Not in the very liberal socialist Europe. She's definitely not the consensus.
Yeah, well, it made it through all the same. So she's, historical figure. So regardless of what one thinks of her conservative politics. Sticking to Spain, El País reports that investigators have found 4 sets of human remains in the search for the famous writer Cervantes.
Where?
Of course, underneath like a 17th century convent in Madrid.
Oh, we're staying in Madrid.
Staying in Madrid, yeah.
Now Margaret Thatcher is going to be named there on the remains.
There's just history is just the soil's bristling with history in Spain, and of course, author of Don Quixote. So I think he's more important to the Spanish than Margaret Thatcher, actually, from a cultural perspective.
From a lot of perspectives, I think.
Yeah. So there are the
push
search.
that one forward. Last one.
Of course, Margaret Thatcher made me think of Boris Johnson, London's very colorful mayor. And he's in the courting controversy yet again over the homeless spikes dispute. These spikes to keep homeless people from sleeping in sections of London, in this part of South London, I believe. Boris Johnson has called them stupid and wants them to be removed, which would be a good thing.
Yeah, but call them stupid.
But people are saying he's not doing enough to actually combat the root causes of homelessness, which appears to be on the increase in London.
Who put them there, the spikes?
Who put them there to begin with?
It looks like it would be someone from London municipal authorities because it's outside of a public housing
So that would
project.
make him their boss.
In a sense.
So he doesn't have to just call
Well,
him
this is
stupid.
why
He could-
he's been called on it, because it's like it's one thing to tweet bad idea, but people are saying, aren't you supposed to sort of be in charge
Exactly.
of the whole thing? So
But this is Boris Johnson. This is the way he does things. You know, he makes
He's
a
a
bicycle.
maverick.
Yeah, I mean, he does, you know, the in-between snaky kind of things, and then shows up for a photo op, and we're all.
well, he's got that hair, which it's an automatic photo op no matter where he goes. You know.
You have a photo op with him? Have you?
I've got a selfie with him.
You do?
No, I don't.
You
No.
would have, though.
I would
know
love
you
to.
could.
Yeah, but anyway, keeping it interesting in London, I
In
guess.
London City. Anthony Grant, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
On to our next story. As we said, Deputy Mayor Asaf Zamir is here because Tel Aviv is home to Israel's largest LGBT community, and on this Friday we'll be hosting the 16th annual Pride Parade, where a record number of 30,000 tourists are expected to participate, in addition to the tens of thousands of Israelis, of course. And ahead of the parade, and in honor of Gay Pride Month, Tel Aviv's Rabin Square will be glowing with pride every night this week, as rainbow-colored LED light bulbs are now decorated the city's municipality building. Hi, Asaf. Thank you for joining.
You're welcome. Hi, yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
So we've had a lot of gay pride events coming on the show, and we've spoken to, you know, expos and cinemas and so forth. But the parade seems to still be the centerpiece of this month and this week.
The parade has always been the centerpiece because I think the parade generates conversation. It can generate good conversation or bad conversation, but it's big, it's booming, it's colorful. You cannot not see it. It's so big, it's in the center of the city, and that's why the LGBT community started out with this parade. Now, all the other things you've been talking about this week are components that we've been adding or private initiatives that have been added amongst the years, but the center and the core is always the parade. The parties are around the parade, the beach is around the parade, and the expo is around the parade, and the tourists come for the parade.
But you talk about the controversy of the parade, and it's true. I mean, we have controversies all the time in our country between the religious and the secular, between gays and straights and so forth. But it has reached a certain consensus, you would say, right? There is an
No.
increasing trend.
No.
No,
I think it's no. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I don't agree. I think that it's the consensus you're talking about is the wrong kind of consensus, because it's become as if everyone's cool with it, but they don't have equal rights. And until they don't have equal rights, which are very, very basic equal rights, the things that the LGBT community have not achieved yet via legislation in Israel are very, very technical, very small things, adoption rights, marital rights, things like that. And I think that the fact that everyone is kind of okay with this community, but is not strong about the rights part, makes it irrelevant that people don't mind that there's the...
Okay, I will take that for an answer, but I also want to say that perhaps as opposed to other cities in the world where gay rights is something of the fringe and something that perhaps, just a certain part of society deals with, here the municipality has taken quite a big stance on it.
That's true, but I think sometimes, and I say this sadly, that's the difference between our city and our country. I think if our country would be just Tel Aviv, then the rights issue wouldn't be a problem anymore. And Tel Aviv, in comparison to other cities in the world, is a gay haven. And that is why 5 years ago we started with the gay tourism project, because we thought this is a great potential and it's a great showcase to the world, the fact that it's such a great place for the gay community. But still, it's one city in a country which doesn't see it this way yet.
Asaf, we're going to go straight now to the Knesset, to our I-24 News correspondent, Charles Bieblazer, who is there, of course, on hand for the presidential elections due to take place underway today at Israel's Parliament. Charles, what can we expect today?
Good morning, Yael. The excitement is building as the Knesset prepares to elect Israel's 10th ever president. What you can expect in terms of process this morning is as follows. Basically, each member of the parliament will be called one by one to enter a booth and cast a secret ballot for one of the 5 remaining candidates. Thereafter, the votes will be counted. The process is expected to take about 3 hours. It will be determined whether a candidate has achieved a clear majority. If not, a runoff vote will take place between the two leading candidates later this afternoon in a second vote. So that's in terms of the process. One little tidbit of information, which is a little bit interesting, one candidate will be missing today, one MK that is, I'm sorry, who is out of town, a United Torah Judaism MK. So instead of the candidates requiring 61 votes out of 120 seats, the winning candidate today will only require 60 votes.
Thank you, Charles Biebel is our I-24 News correspondent. You will continue to update us from the Knesset throughout the day. Of course, the vote is underway in a few hours only, and we'll have the first round of election results later today. Thank you for joining us. Back here in studio, Asaf, yes, we do talk about the municipality's ideology in terms of, yes, wanting to take a stance, but there's also a financial benefit to be made, and it's not something negative I'm saying, but it is something that you probably, in the municipality, have a clear-cut financial plan for.
If you become a good city to certain communities, that can be rewarding financially. If you are good to other communities, it can still be rewarding financially. I think it's smart as a city to find out or to decide we're good with this community. Let's try to benefit for the rest of the city from it, and that's why we do the gay tourism thing. But you shouldn't be. Don't get it mixed around. Yeah. It starts with being good to a certain community because of political agenda, and then you can benefit from it.
So what are the plans ahead? If every year we do see additions on to make the Gay Pride Week, not a week, but a month, we see, of course, decorations on City Hall, and we see expos and so forth.
Flags in the street, flags in all of it.
Where can it go from here? Are we gonna change completely?
We can all go out of the closet, all of us, me and you, and it could be.
That would be great for tourism.
Where can it go? First of all, we have goals that are more internal, and they're more educational and communal. We have a goal, it's a dream, saying that gay won't be a curse in school. And that makes us want to go to schools and start educational programs. We're opening up the biggest LGBT youth center in the city, or in the country, actually. We're going to open it up in 2 months. So these are kind of the things we're talking about. And then there are the challenges that are internal, like starting a family. When we were younger, older people in this community did not have kids. And today, in our generation, all of LGBT community members are going to have kids. So that means more kids in the educational system as well.
Where are you going to be on Friday? On a float dancing away?
Probably.
Good. I'll see you there.
Okay.
Thank you, Tel Aviv Deputy Mayor Asaf Zimmer, for joining us. Anthony Grenfell will be back. Next up are the headlines. Welcome back. It's still Tuesday, June 10th, 2014. This is the Morning Edition, and I'm Yael Wisner-Levy. Thank you for staying with us. We're going now to a more cultural note, the Academy Day. It's an exclusive high-level networking event held by the International Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, the International Emmy Awards, in different countries around the world. But this year, Israeli media company Dori Media will be bringing the prestigious event for the first time to Israel. We're honored to be joined in studio by Dori Media Group CEO and President Nadav Palti. Good morning, Nadav.
Good morning.
So, I mean, everything comes to Israel in a little bit later than other countries, we have to admit. But now that it's here, it's quite fascinating to see that Jerusalem is going to host such an international day.
Yeah, first of all, it's a great honor to Dori Media and to Israel and to Jerusalem. But it's not so late because they did it only, I think, in 5 locations before, meaning Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Mexico City, Berlin, Hong Kong, and China.
So very different cities.
Very different, and it's international academy. Okay, so it's all around the world, not include the US, even though that a lot of executive leaders from the media industry came from the US also, which we're going to bring around 150 executive leaders from all around the world, which is a huge influence. And we want to show them, the idea is to show them Israel. All the aspects of Israel, meaning, of course, the media industry, the TV industry, but cultures, science. We want to meet them with all the political people, the leaders, like our Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, Gilad Ardan, the communication minister, and Mrs. Limor Livnat, the culture and sport, and also maybe the president, Mr. Shimon Peres. And it's going to be very interesting also. Agriculture, like we're going to Masada, we're going to tour Masada, we're going to see the Opera La Traviata on the foot of Masada.
So really showcasing the best of Israel. Why was Israel chosen? I mean, you say the other cities, Rio and so forth, all these up-and-coming kind of cities around the world. Is Israel chosen because of its up-and-coming TV industry, which is already making headlines around the world?
I think it's mixed of few. First, to get the opportunity to do it, you have to get some kind of a sponsorship plan for 5 or 6 years with a media company. Like in Brazil, it's Globo. In China is CCTV, the biggest media company. And then after, yes, it should be interesting. Because to get 150 people from all around the world, the leader of industry, is really not easy task. And it's a 4.5 days, full 4.5 days, without secretary, without telephone, from very early in the morning to very late at night, and only with us. It's a great opportunity for Israel. Also, we're going to show them, for example, the president of the Weizmann Institution will come with 15 scientists for a dinner that each one of the scientists is going to be on a table with 12 people from the academy to explain about the new research that he did on the brain, on nanotechnology, if it's influence or not on how we consume media. And, it's all around Israel, and we have a very important sessions. We want to show them, first of all, Israel. What is Israel? Then after, the problematic of the industry, Yoram Mukadi, the VP content of HOT, which is above us.
Right.
He is show us the complication of the regulation and all this kind of thing. We are a very small country, language that, who knows, 10 million people speak around the world. And it's not easy to penetrate and to crack the glass seals. Right,
but that's something that Dori Media, the company that you head, did crack a few glass ceilings along the way. It started as very small, and as we said, the TV industry in Israel was very local, but it's become very international. You go now to the big festivals abroad, and you even turn on the TV in America, and it's most likely a TV format sold from Israel.
Yeah, we cracked this glass ceiling in 2003, actually, and we established in 2006 Dori Media distribution house. We're well known. We are now, everybody know who is Dori Media in the world. You know, we have awareness, recognition, and goodwill. We have a daughter company in Buenos Aires. We produce also in Buenos Aires. We produce a lot in Israel, and we sell it worldwide in all kind of conventions that you just spoke about. And we sell to the US. We sell to 120 countries, 700 clients all around the world, and we have 17 TV channels. We have 2 TV channels in Indonesia, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and Sony, the big Sony Pictures, which, by the way, a very nice delegation from Sony is coming to Israel.
Okay.
The president of TV, the president of production of Sony. They bought 50% of one of our channel in Indonesia, and we are partner today 50-50 in one of our channel. Also in Israel, you know, we have Viva and Viva Plus, which is
also the big soap operas.
But not only.
Not only.
We are doing all the film channel for HOT and few series channel for HOT and for Yes. So we have a 17 TV channel, not broadcasters, not advertising based, not news, but a very important channel.
What's the secret sauce, the secret ingredient of Israeli content that you think sells abroad, that Dori Media does, and you say in 2003, kind of cracked that glass ceiling? What was it that made the world look towards Israel?
I think first, the Israeli are not afraid from anything. We are not afraid to try. We can fail, okay, so we'll move, we'll try another angle, another door, another window, we'll be there. Second, in Israel, you have to think out of the box. You have to be very creative. The budget is very small. So like in Treatment, which is a very famous Israeli production that did by HOT and Chagai Levi, and we distribute it worldwide. It's a very nice, very high profile format, but in a very low cost to produce. So it's traveled very well all around the world. But to create it, you have to think really out of the box. I think you have a very good connection between the high-tech industry in Israel, science, and the media. Now, all the people that create the high-tech industry now create actually the content industry. Now, remember, in Israel, tochen and tochna,
Right.
which is the same root. It's
Okay.
content and software.
Right.
Meaning we, the people that create the high-tech, create now the content, and it's really the same idea, different thinking. Take everything out of the box, different angles. Why? You said you did it in the last 100 years, so what? We want to do it different. And fortunately, it's in the last few years, it happens to become a great success.
And so, what's the next big mountain that you're going to climb? Or, I mean, the media world internationally is changing at a rapid pace. And of course, as you say, Israel does think out of the box and has creative solutions. So, what's the next, big mountain to climb?
We have few. But I think we have a digital department that we want to create something in the digital. We want to continue to produce because again, content is the king, and content continue to be the king and will be the king. So you have to produce a lot, and to produce. We produce a lot in Israel, produce a lot in Argentina, sell it worldwide. Hopefully, it will be the next Homeland, the next, who knows, scandal or
Right.
the biggest series. Now, the first time in the history, we produce in Israel feature film, movie. 90 minutes, going on the 7th of August, this coming, 2 months from now,
Right.
on all the theatrical in Israel called Galis. Galis is a very well-known teens series that we produce in Israel, selling it now worldwide. It's the first time that we really produce a movie, and this is maybe the next step.
Well, I mean, in terms of Homeland and Scandal, you just need to have President Obama liking your show, and I think then it makes it a success overnight. Nadav, thank you for joining us, and good luck with Academy Week and so forth. And this is going to be quite a success story for Israel internally and, of course, internationally as well.
Thank you very much for you and all your covers that you give us.
Thank you. We're joined now in studio. We're joined now in studio by Ynet America's journalist Roni Stav. Roni, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am sure you learned a lot from that.
I did. This is all so very exciting.
Roni comes daily and weekly and whenever she can to tell us a lot of
Whenever I'm not in a plane.
industry news. So this is right down your alley.
Right. So from Emmy, we're going to go to Tony. The Tony's event was 2 days ago. The Broadway.
The Broadway part of the Emmys.
The Broadway part, exactly. And it was a really exciting night. It's being known to be one of the most exciting or interesting award events. The Oscar is very PC.
Right.
And then we have the Broadway and musical people to give a little spunk into it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nice theater.
Exactly.
So who are the big headliners?
Well, there was a few that were really, it was an anything goes type of a Broadway season. There were no real forthcomers, fourth runners. Sorry. So everything was really exciting, and there was some really moving and surprising moments throughout the night. I think that one of the most talked about moments was Audra McDonald's winning the award for Best Actress for playing Billie Holiday in the play Lady Day.
Right.
And this is her 6th win, and she's the first actor to ever win the 4 different categories,
Wow.
the acting categories in the Tonys. So obviously
So
she
the
was
new It Girl.
Yeah, she is.
Basically.
She has been the It Girl for years and years and years now. But I think it was a really exciting moment. It's a female actor. She's a woman of color. So it was a really, pushing boundaries
Right.
type of a moment. And then on the other side, in the male actor, we have Bryan Cranston after winning
Nice.
consecutive Emmy awards for Breaking Bad. He is now doing his Broadway debut,
Right.
playing the U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yes. I tried to get tickets to that last time in New York, and it was just completely sold out.
Sold out. Yeah, so much interest in this show.
Oh, look at him. He'll forever be Mr. Walter White.
He'll forever be Walter White, but he is doing such a great job in choosing different roles, and obviously doing a great job in portraying them later on, because this is his first Tony.
And it's super smart for actors such as him to go to, back to the stage where it all starts.
Absolutely. He was saying, he was doing Godzilla, so he did this little bit of box office shenanigan going on,
Well,
and
you need to
now
get
he's
paid.
back.
That's
And this is
whatever pays the bills.
yeah, exactly. And this is another one for the heart. And obviously, he was doing such a great job at it.
So I will have to go see them.
Yeah, you should. And then we have Neil Patrick Harris, as usual. Even when he's not a host, he's giving the most memorable moments. He did Sugar Daddy. He was performing Sugar Daddy from his Broadway musical Hangry and the Angry Itch, portraying a transgender Eastern German singer. Playing, getting on stage with a skirt, giving a lap dance to Sting, licking Samuel L. Jackson's glasses.
It does show also the evolution of theater. These are the top runners are, an actor that plays a transvestite and so
exactly.
forth.
And it was a whole theme of gender bender in this Broadway season and at the Tonys as well. Another actor, Mark Rylance, he won his third Tony for playing Countess Olivia in Twelfth Night. So he kept the whole gender theme throughout the night. And then we have Best Musical. So as we said, there was no real fourth runner so we'll know that he's the one that's supposed to win. And
so everything was a surprise.
Everything was a surprise, and this was a really exciting moment when A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder won. They actually won 4 different awards, Best Musical among them. Winning over Disney's Aladdin, over Carole King's musical Beautiful. Oh. So, they addressed the little tutu who can when they were accepting the
tough
prize.
Competition.
Yeah, very tough competition. So good for them. And 4 Tonys, that's a good one. And we had Hugh Jackman as the host.
He's always great.
He's always fantastic. He gave a lot of insiders type of jokes throughout the commercial breaks. He gave the score for the NBA games for San Antonio.
Even though it's like 2 different crowds.
Very different crowd, but he was saying, I know that you're all being updated through your phones. And then he gave this moment of who was not using their phone throughout the night, and only a few hands went up. So he was really giving it a little bit of a spunk, even though Neil Patrick Harris, it's big shoes to go into as the host of the Tony, but he was doing really a fantastic job doing that.
Hugh Jackman is one of a kind. Any of the shows that you've seen in the past few years?
There's so many. It's so hard to see any of the shows that are the it shows, as we were saying. Yeah. But Hedwig and the Angry Inch is one of my personal favorites. Yes,
nice.
Yes. I mean, Neil Patrick Harris. I have to see what he's
wow.
where he's at.
And everything. Most of the shows did originate in Broadway, New York, and they're not like London-based shows that moved to New York and so forth.
They most of them were originated in New York. And there's a lot of hot topics going on. We're kind of shifting from the whole idea of very giggly type of shows. Forgive me for saying no-brainer. Yeah. And into really hot topics that should be a conversation leaving the theater. It's more than just a bunch of people dancing and having fun.
Right. And not only the Disney.
Not only the Disney.
Feel-good shows.
Not only the feel-good shows.
Ronnie Stav, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
And after the break, we're going to have an exclusive interview with Dr. David Guggenheim, otherwise known as the Ocean Doctor, who aims to protect and restore oceans. He's here for Eco Cinema Week here in Tel Aviv. But first, let's hear some more of this morning's headlines.
i24 News מצלמים את כל הלייב, לא יודע אם לייב, עורכים, עושים.
אתכם, את ה... Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. Well, today is the presidential election in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. We're going live now to our I24 News correspondent, Charles Bieblazer. Charles, give us the latest estimates. I know it's a too close to call kind of race, but give us the latest estimates of who is voting for who.
Hi, Yael. Yeah, we're about an hour away until the voting begins, and from what we gauge and initial estimates and word that's circulating around the Knesset is that front-runner Reuven Rivlin is expected to garner at least 50 votes in the first vote. Now, I have to qualify that immediately by saying that obviously this is a secret ballot, so what MKs say publicly isn't necessarily how they're going to vote once things are anonymous. That being said, then you get to the two Dalias, Dalia Itzik and Dalia Dorner. As things stand, Itzik is apparently going to garner upwards of 25 votes, while Dorner is expected to garner some 20 votes. This obviously could change. No one is expected to garner the full 60 votes that will be required to gain an absolute majority and victory in the first stage of the vote. The real question is who Rivlin is going to be going against in the runoff election, and as things stand, it looks like it's going to be either Dalia Itzik or Dalia Dorner.
Okay, Charles Biebel is our I-24 News correspondent there in the Knesset in Jerusalem. Thank you for joining us. You, of course, will be updating us throughout the day today. Thank you. On to our next topic. Ocean Doctor is a nonprofit organization founded in 2004 by Dr. David Guggenheim, dedicated to protecting and restoring our oceans through hands-on conservation. Dr. Guggenheim, or the Ocean Doctor, is in Israel these days, and he's here in our studio, a guest of the Eco Cinema Festival. Good morning, Dr. Guggenheim. Thank you for joining us.
Boker Tov. Good
Boker
morning.
Tov. I see the Eco Cinema Festival has taught you also Hebrew.
Well, it was 40 years since my last Hebrew lesson, so I'm trying to bring it back.
Let's take a look quickly at the following report, and we'll chat.
For the past decade, marine scientist Dr. David E. Guggenheim heads the nonprofit organization Ocean Doctor. Founded by Guggenheim himself, Ocean Doctor takes him and his crew to partake in various missions to protect and restore the oceans. Of course, part of the job is also documenting environmental disasters, such as the 2011 oil spill at Nightingale Island. This tragic accident took place close to the second largest concentration of seabirds in the world, home to 65% of the endangered northern rock hopper penguins. Ocean Doctor's resulting documentary, Nightmare at Nightingale, proved such incidents can occur even in the most remote and peaceful places. Ocean Doctor also focuses on Cuba, where the largest square-mile marine reserve in the Caribbean was set by the government. Only 1,000 divers and 500 fishermen are allowed to enter Cuba's Gardens of the Queen each year. Cuba's marine resources include more than 200 species of fish and other marine habitants. Yet Ocean Doctor warns us that Cuba is in critical condition regarding its fish stocks, and it is bound to affect Southeast U.S. and the Gulf of Mexico. And so Dr. Guggenheim continues his quest for implementing better environmental education worldwide.
Dr. Guggenheim, I would say that one of the biggest challenges when dealing with environmental and conservation issues is, the single individual person saying, I can't do that much. Oceans are this, humongous feature of our world. What can I do? And I think Ocean Doctor, what it tries to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is try to make, that gap a little thinner than what it has been.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the oceans, for many people who don't live near an ocean and people who aren't a diver like you, are feeling very disconnected from the oceans. And they don't feel it's a daily part of their lives. And also they feel that the oceans are so big and so vast that there's nothing that they could possibly do that could make a difference. And yet part of the message is just that there is something that we all can do. One is just to ask questions about what we're eating. There are very good resources online about sustainable seafood. And very often, though, you go to a restaurant or to your fishmonger and they don't even know what they're serving you. So if they hear you asking questions, they're going to ask their supplier those same questions. And little by little, that's how change occurs. Meaning,
what is the biggest challenge that us individuals can try to face? You talk about the extinction of certain species of fish. Is that the number one challenge?
That's one of the biggest challenges in the oceans right now is that it's not just that we are eating too many fish and taking too many fish out of the oceans, but it's the way we fish. We're using very destructive trawling nets that scrape along the bottom and take everything with it, not just fish, but corals and sea turtles and many other species that we don't really mean to kill, but we kill because of the way that we're fishing.
Meaning the demand is high around the world for this fish, and thus this business is thriving. And governments won't really intervene because it's thriving.
That's the biggest part of the problem. And the strange thing is business, there's always high demand, but many of these fisheries around the world are highly subsidized by the local governments. And that is creating an artificial economy that is boosting the capitalization of more and more fishing boats out in the waters. And the thing that we have to remember about fish also is the way we manage fish is very much borrowed from the way we manage corn or other crops that grow on land. But fish are not crops.
Right.
They have jobs to do. They're part of the ecosystem. And when we take them out, we're taking out a piece of that ecosystem. Some fish, their job is to feed seals and other species. Some is to actually keep the population in control of other species. They're predators themselves. And we've consumed about 90% of the world's predatory fish, whether it be sharks or tuna or swordfish. It's happened over the last 50 years, and it's been devastating to ocean ecosystems.
And, you know, much of the conservation efforts does come from the Western world, and perhaps that can be attributed to education and nonprofits such as yours. Is there really a gap between, you know, first world and third world countries? And is it an education gap, or is it a culture gap? Or is the first world just as guilty as the third world?
I think there is certainly an education gap at play here, but part of it is just necessity. People are hungry, people need to eat, and people fish. I do a lot of work in Cuba. Mm-hmm. Eating sea turtles has traditionally been, even though it's not legal, has been an important part of diet because people need food.
Right.
Same with manatees. People will eat a manatee down there because it'll feed the neighborhood. It's a big animal, and they're hungry, and you can totally understand that.
And oceans in general, if you look at the wide range of conservation issues to be dealt with, have reached some kind of headline in the past few years due to various reports. We don't have to get into that, but why has now the international community taken look? It's not only about the fish.
It's been a tremendous change in the way we think. I remember 15 years ago, we were just desperate for any news about the oceans. I mean, just getting on a news program like this would be a dream of something, because it just was not part of the national or international discourse. I think now we're waking up to the fact that these are large-scale problems that really are having an impact. We're seeing less and less fish available to eat. We're seeing sea level rise. We're seeing the destruction of coral reefs. We've already lost 25% of the world's coral reefs, and we're on track to lose another 25% within the next couple of decades. So finally, I think the problems are visible enough, and they're affecting local economies as well. And when you start affecting the economy, that's, I think, sadly, that's what it takes for people to wake up to these issues.
So what governments or countries around the world can you say are taking a more positive and proactive stance on conserving their oceans? And give us grades, you know, who's doing what?
Well, that's a hard question, because there's so many different levels of management. But let's talk about protected areas, for example. Marine protected areas, establishing parks in the ocean the way we've done on land. Overall, we haven't done a great job worldwide. Only about 1% of our oceans are protected worldwide. In the United States, up until about a decade ago, it was about 1/100th of 1%.
And a protected area means that no fishing, no diving, and so forth?
It can mean that. It can mean various levels of protection. But of course, when you stop fishing, that's really has a profound effect on the health of an ecosystem. In Israel, you're about 0.25%, but congratulations, because it's the Rosh Hanikra up to the north was just announced, and then that's a deep water protected area.
Yeah. And as a diver, I've dived there. It's quite tremendous. Yeah.
And one thing we forget is that many people in my generation were taught that nothing lives in the deep water. And now we know that's totally false. The deep ocean is alive and full of life. And in fact, that's where some of the coolest stuff is, but we've only explored about 5% of the ocean. So there's so much mystery out there for us to
So much mystery out there. And it's, as you said, divers always want to go find that mystery, but also the divers themselves need to kind of live and let live.
Yes. Take only photographs and leave only bubbles, or something like that.
Dr. David Guggenheim, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thank you so much.
We now get to say hello and good morning once again to our one and only Anthony Grant, who's here with now What's Hot on the Web.
Well, the word president, presidential things is hot, the buzzword in Israel, certainly. So, of course, that made me think of current Israeli President Shimon Peres and some of his activities in Rome. He yesterday...
He wasn't just with the Pope?
He wasn't just with the Pope. He was with Italian President Giorgio Napolitano, and he conferred on him the Presidential Medal of Distinction as a friend of Israel. He served in the Italian resistance. And Facebook, of course, Paris is a big Facebook person, posted pictures of the medal conferring.
Yeah.
And so a nice way to round out a little Roman holiday.
Well, Paris can't just see the Pope. He has a busy schedule. He has to hand out medals.
He's a statesman, and it's so a fine photo moment. And we always talk about Berlusconi and sort of crazy Italian politicians, but there are some like semi-normal ones.
Side. Yeah. No, definitely. Berlusconi's long gone. We forgot about him.
Yeah, for the moment. But what about Roseanne Barr?
I did not forget about her.
I actually had, which is why this had the New York Daily News. Roseanne Barr wants to take another run for the presidency.
Whoa.
She
on what's her campaign?
Her campaign, she's thrilled by the legalization of marijuana.
Okay.
She fights for the working class.
Okay.
She refuses to be forgotten, and in 2012,
that's a good campaign.
That's a good campaign. She got more than 60,000 votes in 2012.
More than 60,000 votes.
Yeah, she ran. I mean, she put her name on the ballot. I mean, it's easy to do that.
What party?
Probably all in Florida, is my guess. No, she's a very, she's kind of like Hillary Clinton light.
No,
she's got these
Anthony,
social.
come on. Absolutely not. I won't even go down that road.
All right, for that, I'm going to vote for her. And there.
Fine.
Oh wait, no, I can't vote for her. Oh, wait, maybe I will. Anyway, it's too soon to say, but interesting to see.
Well, give us updates from that campaign trail. That's going to definitely be.
Going down memory lane, because Roseanne, of course, you think of the famous sitcom, which was such a huge hit in the States. Ghostbusters was also a huge movie hit.
Yeah.
And now it has emerged that there's a third Ghostbusters movie in the works. And Sigourney Weaver, who, of course, was a big star in those, said her only condition is that she wants her son, her character's son, Oscar, to be a Ghostbuster. And
that was her condition?
Yeah, she wants to have that family element in the movie, and apparently Ivan Reitman, the producer, has said yes. So no date on when it's going to drop, but apparently it's going to be filmed in New York like the other ones, and so.
So back from the future.
Back from the
past to the future.
And actually, also kind of, it's been a while since we talked about Bjork.
It has?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, Bjork.
She's not my.
She's not. Okay. Well, it's not all Rihanna, Miley Cyrus.
Radar,
Bjork is back on the pop radar. Rolling Stone reports that she is the so-called found object of this experimental hip hop group called the Death Grips.
Oh.
And they dropped a new album on Facebook Sunday night, and it's causing quite a buzz, quite a stir, because it's kind of an unlikely pairing of Icelandic pop chanteuse Bjork and this group whose album Niggas on the Moon apparently is causing quite a ripple effect in the.
And you're quoting the name of the album.
I am quoting the name of the album, of course, and. Who would have thought?
Village,
it's hip hop,
Anthony.
Bjork. I mean,
Global village.
I can't handle that one.
One small community.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
all right. Well, we'll have to hear that.
I got to download that one and see what's going on, because is she going to sing in Icelandic? Does she do hip? I don't know.
Our last one for today.
Gwyneth Paltrow back in the news.
Oh. To end the show with a bang. Yes.
Okay, I know she consciously uncoupled from Chris Martin, right?
Right, we know.
So
we
this
remember.
photo is causing a stir because now she's Instagramming herself in a nice sort of gentle moment with the guy that she broke up with. So people are saying, did she really consciously uncouple, or was it all for PR?
They're not like never going to speak again. I mean,
they're getting pretty intimate there in that picture.
yeah. What? I don't understand the headline.
What does the headline say? Gwyneth Paltrow is consciously full of
conscious bovine.
Bovine, yeah. It's a nice way of saying she's full of hot air.
No, I got that.
Yeah, it's a bit. But listen, this is.
It's highbrow headline for Gwyneth Paltrow.
It is pretty highbrow, but I've been seeing this picture everywhere. Like, what is she? Well, check out goop.com for the latest.
We will.
Right?
Anthony Grant, thank you for joining us. That's all for today. Visit us, of course, on our webpage, i24news.tv, or on our Facebook page. And don't forget to join us again tomorrow morning to start your day every day. Next up are the headlines.